This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Nigeria says it's running out of bed space for coronavirus patients. Libya's Prime Minister criticizes the international community over its stance on attacks by Haftar's forces. And as the world marks Mother's Day, we celebrate a Nigerian woman who's had twins at the age of 68. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also coming up this hour. Concerns over Brazil's Amazon rainforest with 1,200 square kilometers wiped out in 4 months. And in sports, South Africa's rising BMX rider Miyanda Maseti aspires to compete at the Olympics. We start the hour with the latest on the COVID-19 pandemic in Africa. Total cases across the continent have surpassed 60,000. The Africa Centers for Disease Control attributes a rise in cases to governments easing restrictions as nations begin to restart their economies. Last week, Nigeria relaxed restrictions in the capital Abuja and the commercial city of Lagos. This has led to residents ignoring precautions like wearing masks and hand washing, despite more people being out on the streets. Nigeria announced its biggest single daily infection rate on Friday, with 386 people testing positive for the virus. Meanwhile, South Africa has also witnessed a spike in cases. The country registered more than 500 infections in a 24-hour period. Its health ministry said coronary pneumonia cases have surpassed 9,000, and the ministry described the situation in the Western Cape as a collective epidemic. And Kenya has also been registering more cases. As people are resuming day-to-day activities, the health ministry announced 25 new cases just yesterday. Other African nations have announced easing of restrictions. Those include Ghana, Niger, Cote d'Ivoire, and Cabo Verde. Well, health authorities in Nigeria say some states are running out of bed space as the coronavirus continues to spread. Lagos, the epicenter of the COVID-19 outbreak in Nigeria, has been hardest hit by the shortage of beds. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus with more.
It's a situation many had feared could happen as the COVID-19 infection rate keeps going up in Nigeria. Now, the head of the country's Center for Disease Control says states are fast running out of bed spaces at their various treatment facilities.
We have a big challenge across the country right now, especially in Lagos, Kano, Zamfara, a few states where the number of new cases is outweighing the capacity to continue implementing our policy of institutional isolation of all the cases, whether you're asymptomatic, mildly symptomatic, or severe, which is the current policy. Yes, but right now, the reality that we're facing is the implementation of that policy is very difficult.
The NCDC puts the total number of bed spaces across the country at about 3,000, with Lagos, the epicenter of COVID-19 in Nigeria, accounting for the bulk of that number. But the challenge is that the pace of the infection rate in the city is now mounting serious pressure on the healthcare infrastructure available.
So our model suggests that by July, we're going to see somewhere between 90 to 120,000 positive cases. However, our testing algorithm only tests for people who have developed symptoms.
Desperate to address the situation and increase the discharge rate of patients in the city, health authorities now say they would begin a clinical trial of hydroxychloroquine.
We've just received the shipment of the first batch of chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, with its placebo counterpart. It is the most powerful clinical trial that you can do, and we have developed several arms of these clinical trials. We're going to be looking at other drugs that are currently trending in the research arena.
The Lagos state government has also said it would soon begin what it calls community management of COVID-19, with primary healthcare centers co-opted into the treatment of patients.
Over the past 6 to 8 weeks, we have been building the capacity of our medical staff to handle and treat patients with COVID. Not only the people in the isolation centers, but people in all our health facilities. And each one of them now has what they call a COVID response team.
The government recently eased a 5-week lockdown on the city and made the wearing of face masks in public mandatory. It also asked people to practice physical distancing. But compliance has been a major issue. The government now says it would begin cracking down hard on defaulters. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos.
Well, neighboring Ghana's government has been widely applauded for its timely and early response to the coronavirus pandemic. However, it's not just public officials who are taking the initiative to tackle COVID-19 in the country. A number of young people are also helping fight the virus by volunteering to support their communities. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Joe Amatekwe and some of his friends have been busy trying to educate members of their community on how to prevent the spread of COVID-19. They are participating in the National Youth Authority's campaign program to help in the battle against the disease.
If I see how this disease is killing people all over the world, I see that the disease is very, very serious. So this is the little way that I can help my community so that they will also follow the protocols and also be free from the coronavirus.
One challenge is getting people to understand they are at risk, as well as a lack of access to information.
A lot of people were taking things for granted, but since these people stepped into the communities, people's mindset completely changed.
The government has made wearing face masks compulsory, urging people to frequently wash their hands to curb the spread of the coronavirus. But getting people to follow the guidelines is a challenge, which is where the volunteers come in.
The volunteers were selected from the communities they live in to bridge the language gap as they create awareness about the coronavirus. They say by speaking the local languages, they are able to make stronger connections with people.
Of Ghana's estimated 30 million people, more than 11 million are made up of young people between 15 and 35. The economy has taken a hammering, and many young Ghanaians have lost their jobs and livelihoods, a situation the National Youth Authority says it's monitoring.
We want to know the extent to which your education has been impacted, your livelihood has been impacted, your health has been impacted, your business, and so on and so forth. I think the base on which we can now begin to design programs and interventions that will also be so helpful in trying to mitigate the challenges that came along with the pandemic.
As Ghana's COVID-19 infections continue to rise, the National Youth Authority hopes to get many more young people involved in helping to educate the community. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
South Africa's efforts to fight COVID-19 have already exposed the country's high rates of unemployment, poverty and hunger. Now, the South African government says reports of gender-based violence have also spiked during its lockdown.
South Africa is one of the most dangerous places in the world to be a woman. And the coronavirus lockdown has shown an increase in the physical and emotional abuse of women and children.
You've got a situation where you've got women that are basically confined for very long periods of time with their abusers. They are unable to actually get out to seek help, but over and above that, their traditional support structures are not available to them. Their churches, their friends, their family members. So it calls for an explosive situation.
The ANC in the Western Cape and members of the ANC Women's League say they are working hard on the ground to assist communities in distress.
Look, I think it's an uncertain time, it's chaotic, and we're calling on men not to take it out on their women. We reached out to the Chinese and they made a generous contribution. And what we then did was, because gender-based violence is prevalent, especially on the Cape Flats, we felt that it was important to come to the oldest center, SARC department, the Center for Abused Women and Children, and to give that donation here.
A donation like this actually really means a lot to a shelter. Shelters are only subsidized by the government, but government up to 45% of what we need to keep going. So at the SARC Department Center, that means I need to find an extra 6 million rand a year to keep going. So yes, we're very, very grateful for the donation.
We want to say to them, and they must stop abusing our women and children. Government, the justice must arrest them, and also must be sentenced and brought in jail. Our people are suffering.
Right now, there are more than 120 survivors of gender-based violence here at the SARC Department Center for Women and Children. They admit that social distancing is still quite a challenge. But being at a shelter like this offers women and children support, security, and empowerment, and could mean the difference between life and death. Renadel Calm, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.
Well, China continues to help Africa in its fight against the spread of COVID-19. Zambia has been among the countries to receive donations of medical supplies. The mayor of Chipata, the administrative capital of Zambia's eastern region, praised China's efforts to help the world fight the coronavirus.
We are the beneficiaries of the contributions you are helping different countries in terms of combating this pandemic. You have the experience, China has the experience. Now, the way they are doing, they don't want to keep for themselves in terms of the way they contain the disease. They are sharing ideas. And what we have noticed is that some contributions are being done towards Africa, some contributions are being done towards other European countries, which is good. That's the unity which China is exhibiting.
Well, the Chinese mainland has reported 14 new cases of the coronavirus, a dozen of which are local transmissions, the highest since March 11, and 2 imported cases from abroad. Shulan City in the northeastern province of Jilin reported all but one of the local transmissions. They are linked with a patient confirmed by the city, but it's still uncertain how that patient got the virus. Local authorities have raised the risk level to its highest, and train services have been suspended. The mainland also reported 20 new asymptomatic cases. Now, moving away from COVID-19, Libyan Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj has criticized the international community for not taking a stronger stance in reaction to the attack on Tripoli's Mitiga airport. Sarraj blames Saturday's attack on forces loyal to Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar. At least 6 people were reportedly killed in that incident and dozens more injured. Eyewitnesses claim at least 80 rockets were fired into Tripoli during that incident. Well, our correspondent Adel Al-Maghrawi joins us now live from Cairo for more on this. Adel, Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj clearly very unhappy. What is he demanding from the international community?
Basically, it's not more about what Fayez al-Sarraj is demanding. It's what is he going to do about this international stagnation. He has condemned the international stance, stating that they are shameless statements of condemnation and are nothing more, showing disregard to the international community that has been more or less looking away or not taking actual action against the offensive that General Khalifa Haftar, the head of the LNA forces, has been leading against the capital Tripoli for over a year now. And what Fayez al-Sarraj said in the statement is that he will continue to support his military, and he, in a quote, he said that the military efforts will not be affected by any means, which is an indirect indication that he will try to arm his the forces allied to him by all means, disregarding the international arms embargo over Libya, which both parties have actually been disregarding and been violating for years of the conflict. Faiz Sarraj has also insisted that what the recent movement of targeting civilian locations in Tripoli is a sign that Haftar is more or less losing the battle and trying to resort to whatever hits Tripoli hard, even if that means civilian targets. But from the other hand, General Khalifa Haftar's LNA forces, the spokesman Ahmed al-Mismari said, rejected the claims that they are responsible of such airstrikes and such rocket launches over the capital Tripoli.
Well, Adel, the UN-backed government also rejected Haftar's offer of a truce. And now, of course, it's clear that the fighting seems to be back in full force. How is this decision affecting both sides of the conflict?
Well, the truce has been violated since the Berlin conference. Before it, Russia and Turkey have tried to broker a truce. It lasted for a few days, and then it was violated more or less frequently, and then totally has fallen after the Berlin conference, which should have gotten the international support to that truce as possible. That has broken the trust between both parties, both the Western government of National Accord and the Eastern forces, the Libyan National Army and their backing allies in Tobruk. Which means that even when Haftar claims or announces another commitment to a round of truce, Faiz and his allies do not really trust that this will be fully in place, and that's why they have rejected these claims as what happened before. But what does it mean? It means that more bloodshed will be following. It means that Libya will not be finding any peace soon, especially under the holy month of Ramadan, a religious month that should have been according to LNA forces, should have been respected by a ceasefire. But on the contrary, Tripoli has seen one of the bloodiest weekends in recent months. At least 15 have been killed and 50 injured, according to statements from the government of National Accord. They say that 4 aircrafts in Atika airport were completely destroyed, among them a United airplane, and as well as ambulances and fire trucks, all have been destroyed in these recent attacks.
So clearly, as you say, Adel, no peace just yet for Libya. Thank you so much for joining us there live from Cairo. You are watching Africa Live. Let's take a short break. We'll have plenty more news right after this.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Let's shift our focus now to the United States, where President Donald Trump has come under fire for his handling of the coronavirus pandemic.
The risk to the American people remains very low. You know, you do certain things that you do when you have the flu. I mean, view this the same as the flu.
This was Trump's message just a few months ago. But since then, what has changed? We now know that the White House was repeatedly warned of the severity of the rapidly spreading coronavirus by the National Security Council, by the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and by the president's top trade advisor. But having failed to take immediate and aggressive action to limit the virus's impact, Trump turned to blaming the WHO and China, ratcheting up tensions at a time when the international community is calling for increased cooperation.
I call on world leaders to come together and offer an urgent and coordinated response to this global crisis.
Trump's White House instead dug in, rejecting measures implemented by other countries intended to curb the pandemic, limiting the ability of states to treat those infected, and pushing for a rapid reopening of the economy, despite over 1 million being infected, tens of thousands dead, and few signs that the worst is over.
A reasonably good economic analysis suggests that the reopening of the economy, the safe reopening of the economy, will provide much better numbers.
Now, the Trump administration is accused of burying a CDC report intended to offer policymakers step-by-step guidelines towards a cautious reopening. And in the midst of all this, several White House staff members have reportedly become infected themselves, bringing the deadly pandemic closer to home. Brian Dorman, CGTN.
Meanwhile, the Iranian government says it is ready for a prisoner exchange with the United States without preconditions. Washington has not yet responded. An Iranian government spokesman says they are worried about the safety and health of Iranians in jail, and they hold America responsible for the safety of those Iranians amid the pandemic. In 2019, the two sides swapped prisoners, American graduate student Shizhu Wang and Iranian stem cell researcher Masoud Soleimani. Now, turning to East Africa, the region has suffered massive flooding as it deals with the COVID-19 pandemic. The floods have killed hundreds and destroyed millions of dollars worth of infrastructure and property. CGTN's Daniel Arabmoy reports on East Africa's latest troubles.
The deluge pounding the region is of unprecedented proportions. Floods have killed over 200 people in Kenya, with Rwanda reporting at least 70 deaths.
Sadly, these disasters have largely fallen under the radar due to the world's main focus on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Heavy rains in Eastern Africa came off the back of consecutive drought, locust invasion, and now COVID-19, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake.
We have so far lost crop running into 8,000 acres.
As we look at how to deal with this situation in our hands, the long-term solution is to respect nature, to promote nature, protect our environment.
In Uganda, the script reads the same. President Yoweri Museveni has been to visit the shores of Lake Victoria, whose water has risen to destructive levels, literally moving some islands, causing death and temporarily plunging the country into a nationwide power blackout after damaging the hydropower generation plant.
The water of Lake Victoria has now reached the record level of 1964. In 1964, on the 12th of May, it reached 13.41 meters at Entebbe. This morning, that water where I stopped was 13.4 meters. So it's just 1 point below the 1964 record level.
At least 23 people have suffered death at the hands of the raging floods in southern Kivu province in the Democratic Republic of Congo, not to mention the trail of destruction of property. The situation is no better in Somalia, with more than 15 people killed and 200,000 affected by the torrential rains and floods. The sky have also opened, visiting the wrath of Mother Nature on neighboring Ethiopia. Forecast by weathermen paints a rather bleak picture, with more heavy rainfall expected in the East African region over the next few days.
All countries or regions that are within 10, around 5 and 5 south, 5 north, 5 south, those areas around this time between March and May every year. That's when the intertropical convergence zone is normally within this region.
While the affected governments have made some effort to support victims of flooding, the response has been muted to a certain extent, owing to a strain on available resources.
The situation adds to pre-existing humanitarian needs in a context marked by underfunding and resource limitations as East African nations focus on the COVID-19 pandemic. Daniel Arab Moi, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Let's now turn to our continuing series on the impact of the coronavirus pandemic in Africa. The focus today is on lessons learned by African nations. We start in Egypt, where a public health coach has been creating awareness videos about the coronavirus pandemic. Nuran Kandil has amassed a large media following from this and has also been part of a national health awareness campaign. From Cairo, here's Adel Al-Mahri with more.
After 8 years in pharmaceutical industry, Nurhan Andil changed careers to become a dietitian. She studied public health and devoted her time to helping new moms lose weight and pursue a healthy lifestyle. When the news about the pandemic emerged, Nurhan decided it was time to create awareness about COVID-19.
When I learned that COVID-19 had become a pandemic, I knew it was like a newborn. Basically, no one knows anything about it. I kept thinking, which medical specialization should COVID-19 fall under? I paused, then I realized it's the responsibility of everyone. So I took the mission to research proper information and inform my followers.
6 weeks before Egypt reported any infection, she created a video series to explain the basics about the virus. Initially, her warnings were taken lightly.
People criticized me. Comments would say, "Why are you bothering? It has nothing to do with us." But I insisted on the messages. This is a fast-spreading virus. I instructed them to avoid gathering. I also started to explain what preventative measures they should take to protect themselves, even if their country hasn't reported cases.
When Egypt reported its first case of COVID-19, Nurhan's viewership spiked.
Out of many experienced influencers who participated in the Month of Good Deeds campaign, I was surprised to see Instagram chose me as an inspiring and motivating advocate. That's mainly because I kept focusing on how people can improve their immunities during Ramadan to improve their COVID-19 resistance.
Nurhan's efforts earned her a place on a health campaign spearheaded by the Egyptian president. Her content is now being used to create public awareness. She has been cautious not to create panic in the process, and her videos have gone viral, reaching millions of people online. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Well, as in many parts of the world, mass gatherings have been banned in Tunisia due to the coronavirus pandemic. This means cultural events and concerts have been cancelled, but this new norm has not stopped the music. CGTN's Adnan Chouachi reports.
Sofiane Safta is one of Tunisia's top musical talents. He has dedicated his life to music and to humanitarian causes. Despite the lockdown, the guitarist and other musicians have produced a song dedicated to medical workers on the front line of the coronavirus pandemic.
We have composed the song in less than 24 hours in very special conditions. We recorded the music and lyrics at home, then uploaded the videos of many singers and edited the video clip. Now it's available online to boost the morale of the medical staff nationwide.
Feriel Garali is one of the doctors battling COVID-19 in Tunisia. She acknowledges the challenges of the healthcare system, but also says support from artists and civil society activists will go a long way.
The initiative and the online campaign has helped us because we are working in extreme conditions. Tunisia is on the right track if we compare the situation to other countries. We need equipment, but the wave of solidarity from civil society is unbelievable.
Feriel and her colleagues risk their lives so that hundreds of coronavirus patients are treated and cared for daily.
It's a very difficult period because we must protect ourselves as well as citizens, whether they are infected or not. We are proud of all medical staff. Together, we can defeat the virus.
For the artists, their songs online is their own way of expressing support and encouragement to doctors like Firiel. They, like everyone else, hope this will be over soon. Sofiane and other musicians are producing music and creating very emotional digital content, describing the daily obstacles to the provision of safe and quality care at hospitals. The artist's message is that music will remain loud as long as doctors and medical workers are on the front lines in the fight against the virus. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Recapping your top stories at this hour, the Iranian government says it is ready for a prisoner exchange with the United States without preconditions. Washington has not yet responded. Health authorities in Nigeria say some states are running out of bed space as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread in the country. Nigeria announced its biggest single-day infection rate on Friday, with 386 people testing positive for the virus. And Libyan Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj, who leads the government of national accord, has criticized the international community for not taking a stronger stance in reaction to the attack on Tripoli's Mitiga airport. The Saturday attack has been blamed on forces loyal to Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar. Well, time now for a short break. Your business news up next. Coming up, concerns over Brazil's Amazon rainforest with 1,200 square kilometers wiped out in 4 months. And Tunisian startup deployed Deforestation in Brazil's Amazon rainforest has risen sharply. A total of over 1,200 square kilometers of forest, an area more than 20 times the size of Manhattan, was wiped out from January to April. That is a 55% increase from last year. The main causes are illegal logging, mining and farming on protected lands. These new numbers raise questions about President Jair Bolsonaro's commitment to protecting the world's largest rainforest. He also wants to open up more protected lands to economic activity. Bolsonaro has authorized the army to fight wildfires and oversee environmental agencies' work for a month ending June 10th. A Tunisian startup has deployed an autonomous robot at COVID-19 hospitals and treatment centers. The robot serves coronavirus patients and provides instant communication between patients and medical staff. Here's more from CGTN's Adnan Chouachi.
This unit's members at the Abdelrahman Mami Hospital in Tunis are risking their lives by treating over 20 coronavirus patients. But the autonomous robot will reduce that risk as it can move around the COVID-19 center to facilitate the work of doctors and nurses.
This is an important achievement for the healthcare system in the Arab world and in Africa. the manufacturing and programming of the robot is 100% Tunisian. The robot limits the high risk of infection with COVID-19 for the medical and paramedical staff.
Dr. Maryam Shaban says the medical staff and even family members can communicate with patients from any location.
The robot facilitates the treatment of patients and keeps morale high. We are closer and more available. Families can log in to an online platform and make an appointment. A doctor sends a robot to the room and they can have an online meeting with zero risk of infection.
Innova Robotics has trained dozens of doctors on using the robot. It can be controlled easily by a person using a tablet to avoid exposure to the virus. The invention relies on artificial intelligence to improve the treatment of patients.
The medical staff is in the front line in the fight against the pandemic. Today, we make the robot available to make the necessary diagnosis and screening of the disease.
The Ministry of Health has imposed strict sanitary and prevention measures at this COVID-19 center. Innova Robotics will provide and analyze data after sorting and classifying people according to the risk of infection. According to the National Observatory of New and Emerging Diseases and the COVID-19 Task Force, at least 60 doctors and nurses have been infected with the virus since the beginning of the pandemic in Tunisia. Health authorities will deploy more robots to protect the medical staff. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Chinese business owners in South Africa have come together to provide food parcels for students in Soweto. It's part of the Chinese #WeLoveSouthAfrica campaign to lend a hand during the COVID-19 pandemic. CGTN's Julie Shire has more.
Second-year Bachelor of Arts student Pakisu Masoa has resorted to tutoring matric learners virtually during the COVID-19 lockdown.
We've been, doing some online tutoring myself just to make money. So students deposit some money for me to tutor them. There's grade 12 students, so I've been making some money, and my brother as well have been doing some work, just to survive.
Masoa is among more than 1,000 Wits University students receiving food hampers from business owners at Johannesburg's China Mall, who have also felt the pinch of the economic halt.
They're also facing the challenge now because we are not open the shops now, we're not open the mall, and but we have to cooperate with the lockdown rules. We understand during this lockdown time, a lot of people's local families, they don't have food, and they are suffering, and we just want to show. From our community, we just want to show our support.
South Africa's extended shutdown has been felt the hardest by millions living below the poverty line. It's been hard for students to focus on studying without knowing where their next meal would come from.
In the past week, things have been a little bit tougher, but hopefully from now it's going to be better, because since we received some food parcels, it's going to help us a lot.
As you can imagine, studying on an empty stomach is quite difficult. So this will help, this will have some nutritional benefits to the students and will help them as they progress towards their studies.
The longer this lockdown drags on, the deeper this crisis becomes. Some non-essential business activity has been allowed to resume, but the majority who have no other income streams are still being asked to stay at home to prevent an acute spike in COVID-19 cases. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, time now for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. On this Mother's Day, we celebrate a Nigerian woman who's had twins at the age of 68.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
to bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
In Kenya, people living near the Masai Mara National Park have reported unusual animal activity in recent weeks. As human traffic reduces due to the COVID-19 crisis, more animals are venturing out of the park. But as some conservationists have warned, this could pose challenges to the country's conservation efforts. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa reports.
It's mid-morning and the animals have come out to play. As more people stay home at this conservancy in the Masai Mara, the animals are coming out in their numbers. The constant roar of vehicles driving across the Mara, the drone of planes passing overhead, and the constant human chatter has faded away. In its place is the symphony of birdsong, and the animals are reveling in this serene environment. But scientists argue that this isn't necessarily good news. They say the pandemic has made conservation work harder. Several projects are now on hold. In Kenya, the halt in tourism is creating new problems. The country attracts about 1.5 million tourists every year. Of these, over 70% visit its national parks to see the wildlife. The falling revenues mean many workers, including rangers in these parks, have been laid off. That could lead to increased poaching. Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife says his ministry and the Association of Wildlife Conservancy Rangers in Kenya wants to ensure 3,500 rangers receive their salaries for 6 months. But Treasury is yet to approve the plan. As countries battle COVID-19, Midori Paxton, the head of Ecosystems and Biodiversity at UNDP, says that the tourism sector must be viewed like a large corporation that employs millions and benefits many. She wants authorities to assist communities that protect wildlife by giving them COVID-19 recovery packages. In the Mara, the future is uncertain. And as the animals retire as darkness falls, yet another unusual day ends. Wilkista Nyabwa, CGTN.
It's Mother's Day today, and to celebrate mothers, we feature a 68-year-old Nigerian woman who has set what is considered a medical record in Africa by giving birth to twins. CGTN's Deji Badmus has her story, the story of Margaret Adenuga.
Unless you've heard their story, you'd probably mistake the babies for their grandchildren. But the twins are actually the children of Margaret and Noah Adenuga. And yes, 68-year-old Margaret gave birth to them. The couple had been married since 1974 and had been trying for a child without success until now.
What can I say? When he finally came, we are happy. I was overwhelmed, but we thank God. We give glory to God.
Carrying your own baby now, how does it feel? What's the experience like?
I'm very happy to see them. So I'm happy. I'm happy, always happy when I see them.
Their story is that of human perseverance in the face of a seemingly impossible situation. After 3 failed IVF attempts, the couple did not give up. The 4th attempt eventually led to the birth of the twins.
When we started, I keep assuring my wife that you have it will happen. It's going to cost money. I only ask my wife, because of her age, do you think you can still carry pregnancy at your age? Say, why not? Say, why not? If you are then, relax. It's not over until it is over.
I never lose hope any day. Anyway, I used to tell him that where we are living, I said before we leave that place, we are going to carry our baby. If our baby are going with us, it's not only one. They are going to be 2. I'm a church goer. So in the church, I used to see many testimonies that there's nothing God cannot do. So Yes, I have faith on that. I stand on my feet that God will do it.
Apart from their own self-imposed pressure, the couple say they faced enormous pressure from their family and friends as well.
My mother, before she died, we were at loggerhead because she wanted me to marry another woman. I told her, you are not to tell me who to marry. Even my sister was telling me one day, there was a day I'm free with them because occasionally I'm free with them. I told her, but I say, please, auntie is old. I say, yes. Go and look for a younger person.
How were you able to deal with the pressure coming from his family?
He was the one giving me confidence that I shouldn't, when something happened like that and the one you are, that your husband did not take their side, you'll have confidence on yourself.
Margaret almost lost the pregnancy. Doctors had to keep her in the hospital and monitor her in the last 3 months before she delivered the twins. When you were told you were going to have a CS, were you scared?
I was not. Even they asked me to sign. I signed for it. So I was good. I know that nothing will happen.
What's your wish going forward for these children?
Sorry?
What's your wish and what's your dream for them?
I wish God will do whatever I wanted. I can do. God will provide. Whatever they want, God will provide.
The Almighty God that gave me these twins will provide enough for me to take care of them. And will give me good health, long life, so that I can take care of them. I believe by the time I'm say 80-something, they will have grown up to see me, to know what I have for them. And by the power of Almighty God, they will never regret coming to me. So they know.
They went through a lot to realize their dream, and now they are living it. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
And we go to Uganda now, where bird watchers are promoting conservation during this time of bird migration. Uganda is a fly path for migratory birds, and bird watchers are concerned about their safety as they fly back to Europe to nest. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
At a time when much of the world is stuck at home, birds are setting off on their longest journeys. Susanna Kankunda is a bird watcher. She says every day she spots a unique bird around her home in Wakiso. But she's concerned about their safety in the wild.
The people who are cutting the forest are destroying habitats for these birds that stay in the forest.
Uganda has only around 150 shoebills remaining in the wild. Conservationists blame the reduction in numbers on increased human activity around their habitats. Uganda is home to 10% of the world's bird species, but most of them are endangered. And to keep them safe, bird watchers are urging locals to protect the birds' habitats. Uganda has imposed a ban on mass gatherings and has also restricted movement of people. And Kankunda is using self-isolation as an opportunity to educate her family members about conservation.
I've been teaching my sons at home how to identify birds, the beautiful colors that they have, and whenever they see them around, they also call me. So that is a good sign to show that there's a change or they're learning more about birds.
And she's not the only one. Herbert Byaruhanga is also promoting conservation of birds in his hometown of Rubirizi, western Uganda.
Uganda is part of the flyway, and we have joined the Europeans, people from Israel, that we work together and make sure that we do a lot of awareness with the communities to stop killing the birds.
The birds are not only important for tourism but also agriculture. And protecting them and their habitats is now a priority for bird watchers. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Time now for a short break. Your sports news up next. Coming up, South African rising BMX rider Miyanda Maseti aspires to compete at the Olympics.
Accra is my kind of city. That's because when I'm here, I feel like I'm back home in Lagos or Abidjan, which are two of the major cities I grew up in. See, business in Africa After about a decade covering business news on the continent, I've learned it's all about the high risk, but also the high returns and the high energy. You simply have to adjust in order to keep pace. When I started out as a journalist, my dream was to open people's minds to the different perspectives. From the CEO in the boardroom to the trader out in the street, we all have different stories. From Accra to Addis Ababa, from Cairo to Cape Town. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Here at CGTN, we realize that Africa is on the move, and it's moving fast, but we're moving right along with it. I'm Ucheo Koronkwo, and I'm a business anchor and reporter at CGTN.
We start your sports news in South Africa. Miyanda Maseti is a BMX rider from Johannesburg who is breaking down barriers and setting new standards in the sport. She's dominated her age group at provincial and national level and now wants to improve her international ranking. Maseti's ultimate dream is to one day represent South Africa at the Olympic Games. CGTN's Julie Shire brings us her story.
Miyanda Maseti, the 14-year-old South African who dreams of making it big in the world of BMX.
I started riding because of my brother. I saw him racing and I thought it would be fun, so I started riding. What I love about riding right now is the fact that I can challenge myself against other people.
3 national titles and 3 world championship appearances made Maseti hungry for more success.
My short-term ambitions is currently to get a world number, to become a world champion. If I become a world champion, I'll feel like I've worked hard enough and all of my hard work has paid off.
BMX is a fringe sport in South Africa, but it doesn't deter Miyanda.
BMX in South Africa is actually really quite small. Not a lot of people ride. Other countries have more funding for their riders. They have more training facilities. They have better equipment to ride. I started racing boys because I thought I'd get a lot faster because racing girls wasn't getting me anywhere in a way. Racing boys allowed me to improve as much as they improve, and then I tried to work on that to become faster.
A global pandemic has put Maseti's and so many others' dreams on hold.
The coronavirus has really put a pause in all of my hard work because it has cancelled so many events for me, like my national championships and my world championships. I've prepared so hard and for so long for this, and this year I really felt prepared and ready to win the championship.
Miyanda believes her hard work is not lost, and after missing out on a final spot by 1 position at the 2019 World Championships, she's determined to go one better and get her world number and keep her Olympic dream alive. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And in motorsport, the Uganda Rally Championship had only covered 2 races before the COVID-19 pandemic forced a suspension of sporting activity in the country. Now, with rallying at a standstill, some drivers have turned to racing video games to make up for the lack of the thrill of competition. CGTN's Leon Senyange reports from Kampala.
Middle of a crest, into caution slow.
It's been 2 months since Raymond Munyigwa last sat in a rally car. The national rally car driver is already missing the bars of competition. The COVID-19 lockdown has, however, got him finding other choices to fill the void.
It improves your concentration, basically, because even in a usual rally car, the moment you lose concentration for a second, you're either going to be off the road or you're going to lose the pace.
But Raymond is not the only one for whom racing games like Dart and WRC have been a reliable alternative. Former national co-driver champion Musa Nsubuga has turned his home into something similar to a rally car.
With this pandemic, we also can't risk going out to the sections, and then we know once we have rallies, our fans will be there. So we become a danger to them, and then they also become a danger to us.
With no real rally action for now, the gaming races are providing as much competition. The bag has also caught drivers across East Africa. They race in an online championship.
It is really adding excitement because right now we chat with a person you've never seen in your life, and you are really happy. He's asking what setups you're using, he's asking this, he's asking that, So it's really fantastic.
The crisis has already caused the suspension of all races that were due in April and May. It could extend to the middle of the year. With the uncertainty of when the pandemic will end, these drivers could be stuck in this kind of cockpit a little longer. The local federation says it can only resume competition once there is an all clear from the government. And with 2 months already lost in the championship, there will likely be fewer races to compete in for the rest of the season. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.